Okay. All right. Before we get started, we're going to do some intros. And I think it's probably best for us to just all say our names before we get started now. So I'm Nora.
I'm Ash.
I'm Easy.
I'm Rosie.
I'm Tavia.
I'm KJ.
Sorry, Indy's barking. Hold up, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And I'm Shelby.
Okay.
Indy just likes to interrupt at the worst times.
That's
I'll make
fine.
sure she's quiet.
Yeah. Let's.
Yes.
Shelby was going to start us off with a little bit about KJ's relationship with her mother and forced femininity.
Yeah, so one of my favorite parts of KJ's character and just her overall arc is how they display her relationship with her mom. I find it very relatable and just really honest, and a great example of how it can feel as someone who presents more masculine or someone who self identifies as a butch. In the show, we do get a glimpse at KJ's relationship with her mom, largely through the eyes of her 1999 self, but we do see glimpses of it through young KJ's eyes as well. One of my favorite interactions of the season is when KJ and Aaron talk at Larry's house in episode 4. And that's where KJ really begins to dig into her relationship with her mom for the first time, at least explicitly for the audience to understand. And that's when she says, if my mother got her way, I turned out exactly how she wanted me to, and I don't want to see that. And it's that conversation that kind of sets us up for episode 5, where we see that relationship continue to unfold on screen. It also sets up KJ's overall arc for the remainder of the season, where we start to see her come to terms with herself. And it's the moment in episode 5 where KJ sees her older self talking to Rick and her mom. Mac makes a comment there that really helps propel one of my favorite KJ storylines. Mac says she's not a Jason from Friday the 13th hockey freak, basically insinuating that her clothes are much different than how KJ likes to present herself normally, which KJ responds, "Shut up," in a very annoyed manner, showing that she's not only visibly uncomfortable seeing her mom try and set her up with a man, but she's disgusted by the idea of seeing herself in makeup or a dress, and like her mother always wanted her to. And it's just very obvious from the way that she speaks about her mom and the little interactions that we do get between them, that her mom attempts to force not only femininity on her, but traditional straight femininity. The kind of femininity where girls wear pretty dresses and makeup for the approval of men. And I think that it's this forced femininity that KJ is previously referring to when she talks about her mother getting her way. And I think that we can also see it through the photos that KJ looks at as she goes up the stairs. The prom photo, the graduation photo, and then just her mom in general has this idea of her laid out, and it's that idea that she presents to people. And it's that version of KJ that her mom wants for her. And I also think that this is a large reason why we see that older KJ is still in the closet, and that it can also be inferred that KJ attends school in New York because she wants to be far enough away from her mom that she can be herself. And being herself means being as gay as she wants to, wearing whatever she wants to, and just living her truth. So that overall, all that long-winded stuff to say that I think KJ seeing her older self helps her to see what she feels is most honest and genuine despite what her mom thinks. And I think that really propels her character for the rest of the season.
In the scene where 1999 KJ is walking up the stairs, we see her walk transform from a more feminine way of walking to a more masculine way of walking as soon as she's up the stairs and out of sight of everyone else. And I think that was a really interesting moment there, where it was just a little change in performance that showed her going from her performance version of herself to her more sincere version of herself once she's out of sight of everyone else. And I think that moment really illustrates Shelby's point.
Yeah, I think we here at Stony Streams all are butch KJ believers. It's a very important aspect of our character that we're not really here to debate or anything. As great as her queer, her lesbian rep is, it seems that for a lot of people, KJ's queerness is deemed more important than her Judaism, which I find is kind of like a slap to the face to all the Jewish queer people who watched the show and identified with KJ's experience. I think the intersectionality of those ideas does not deserve to go ignored in the way that it has. And I want to talk about that specifically, that intersectionality specifically as it relates to the pink dress It's in the very start of her character introduction. It has a sticky note on it that says for Shabbat. So not only is it like one of the first things we see with KJ, that she has this negative reaction and that she doesn't like this dress, it's also something that's used to establish her identity as Jewish from the very beginning of the show. It's a perfect introduction. It subtly establishes not only that she's Jewish and rich, but also hinting at the resentment that she feels towards her mother and her life as she rips apart the sticky note. So I think from the start, the pink dress is intrinsically tied to KJ's Jewish identity in a way that a lot of people seem to forget about when talking about her queerness. I think it might be easy to dismiss KJ's Judaism within this subject if you don't understand the importance of a bat mitzvah. It is the dress she's going to wear to her bat mitzvah. If you've never been to the actual Shabbat service of a bat mitzvah, it might seem like it's kind of just like a party that, you know, Jewish kids have when they're 13. That's not really it at all. It's much more about the significance of the moment. You spend months and like even years preparing and, you know, learning your Torah portion, and it's really hard work. And it marks the welcoming into your community of your synagogue, and the beginning of like figuring out who you are, your own individual identity outside of your family. That's what a bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah is. You know, it's becoming a Jewish adult and like learning who you are and becoming your own person. For KJ, she is going to celebrate that momentous occasion, the beginning of her Jewish adulthood, wearing a dress her mother picked out, talking to people her mother invited, and acting exactly the way her mother wants, just like she does in that party in 1999, which also ties into the quote that Shelby said earlier of, if my mother got her way, I turned out exactly as she wanted me to, and I don't need to see that. So I think the pink dress, in my mind, is a lot more of like a symbol in KJ's eyes of how she's failing to be her own person, and how she thinks the rest of her life is just going to be doing whatever her mother wants her to do. She doesn't have the courage to go against her mother, but she also finds she doesn't have much of an identity outside of her parents' expectations. That's why it's so significant when she invites the other paper girls to her bat mitzvah in episode 8. She finally has something that's entirely her own that she isn't ashamed of. So that's just something I wanted to talk about with the pink dress and just KJ's Jewish identity in general. We'll be doing a specific episode talking a lot more about that, but that's something that's really important to me and something I really wanted to say. So yeah.
Piggybacking off of what Nora said, I also just wanted to point to the fact that KJ's whole storyline is also very like unique for a Jewish girl in media, simply because she's like very rich and she's Jewish as well. She could have very easily been this Jewish American princess stereotype. I mean, basically what a Jewish American princess is just any rich, spoiled Jewish girl, but it's also someone who top criticism of them is they have shame about being Jewish, so they're trying to fit into WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant society, basically. And I feel like between KJ and her tension with her mom, it kind of like refutes these ideas that are like tied up in misogyny and anti-Semitism, especially since she's not a selfish person or a superficial person. And it wouldn't have been bad if she had like a different story. It was just, this is so much more rare to see. And also going off of that, I just wanted to slip in her connection to the Holocaust and how I feel like that could inform her worldview amongst the girls. Simply because her grandmother is a Holocaust survivor. I mean, she might have more family members, but we don't know. And basically, she said this thing that caught my attention. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, if you have the ability to change something, you should. And this all like kind of ties into like time travel. And she was talking about Mac and their cancer diagnosis. But I also think it's like interesting that she feels like the most strongly about using time travel in the way that the SDF wants to use it. Because I feel like when it comes to conversation around the Holocaust, there's like this like idea that there was nothing that could be done, but there was. And I feel like it probably like, you know, from hearing stories, she was probably also thinking of that as well.
I'm really excited to get into that with you, Af, in that episode that we'll do in a couple weeks.
No.
Af, do you want to talk about KJ's rage?
So basically, KJ and her mom and her rage. I feel like KJ. There's a scene where KJ's like lying under the table after she has essentially killed someone. She was doing it to protect the girls, but nonetheless, she killed someone, and she's like only 12. And she basically says, "Why was it me?" And I feel like there are a couple of theories for why. Like, definitely, I feel like part of it is she has all these. There's a lot of pressure from her mom to like fit into these certain expectations for her, and I feel like KJ doesn't know exactly why she can't meet those expectations, but she knows that she can't do it, because it's like not who she is, simply. And I feel like that's part of the anger, but I feel like there's also this way that rage is like a gendered emotion. Like some emotions are like split by gender. And so on top of that, if your mom is trying to force you into be a more feminine person, then like being angry is not something that you can do. Which in the comics as well, her grandmother basically tells her not to be mad at the girls who are like calling her anti-Semitic slurs and bullying her. So I feel like it's like this rage from being like so different, and like it's all like piled up. Like she does not really get much of a release from it, except in sports. And it's also like the rage of like, keep using the word rage when I say anger of like being a marginalized person, but you can't get angry because anger looks different on you. It's like scary to other people.
Oh man. So, what I've said about KJ's rage not being something that girls can really do, this is something I have a lot of thoughts about. And it reminded me of, I think Mac at one point after KJ punched her, she called KJ psycho, which I have a lot of thoughts about. Apart from psycho being an ableist slur, it also makes me think about how we have this stereotype of angry young men, but with girls, it's crazy young women and hormonal young women. It's never just angry young women. And I think that a lot of the girls who get labeled as psycho or hormonal or crazy and all of these things are actually just angry, and they have good reason to be. So that moment where Matt calls her psycho, I think that really demonstrates a lot of the differences between how angry young women and angry young men are perceived. So.
I think I might go into some of my KJ as a protector stuff. KJ definitely has a protector role within the group. I think there's sort of a push and pull of like who is leading the group at any one time. Sometimes it's like, sometimes it's Tiff, sometimes it's Aaron even and Mac. But KJ like consistently is very much a protector within the group, whether or not she's leading the group. She always puts the physical and emotional needs of others before her own. And it sort of forces her to like bottle up her own emotions. And I think that's a big reason why they tend to explode so much. The first real big blow up we see from KJ is on the bridge. And in my mind, that is a culmination of her hiding away her own stuff and feeling like Tiff goes and tries to sacrifice herself and then Larry leaves. I think that's why she gets so mad at Tiff, is because she's tired of people putting themselves and putting the people she cares about in danger when all she's trying to do is save them. And she keeps feeling like she's failing. She feels like she failed with Mac. Mac's family was in danger. People get mad at her after the party, and it seems like only then is she able to like take a minute and focus on herself because everybody's mad at her. And so she goes and sees herself in the movie theater. And she's about to tell Mac about that. And then Mac interrupts with her whole thing about, I'm going to be dead in 4 years. And KJ drops everything and spends the rest of the series focusing on Mac. And so I think, in season 2, that would probably culminate into another blow up between Mac and KJ, because KJ keeps, compartmentalizing her emotions to take care of other people's. She only ever seems to freak out noticeably to everybody else externally when it affects somebody else. So she freaks, the bridge blow up is all about like everybody. She doesn't want everybody to be in danger again. And she freaks out about killing a guy. The first time she ever really, is outwardly very emotional just for herself is in episode 5 when she punches Mac.
I wanted to talk about how she's like kind of piggybacking up what you said about her being like the protector of the group. She really takes this sort of kind of older sister type role, like especially towards Aaron, in my opinion. I think I don't know if she is the oldest, but she has that sort of, I guess, mentality of being the oldest of the group and having like the responsibility of stuff. But I think now she is extremely like just naturally a really caring person, and she really does put herself below other people. She always puts people above her no matter what terms she is on with someone. Like even in the mall scene in episode 2, even when Mac was ripping her apart, she was obviously upset and mad, but that didn't stop her from like worrying about Mac and making sure that she was okay. There's even a scene, I can't remember what episode it was. There's even a scene where she felt bad for Larry, but she even felt bad for him, and she was really, really empathetic, and even like was talking about how Heck and Aldo were dead, and how she was really sorry. And you could see she even like sort of you could see her walk a little bit closer to him in like somewhat of a comforting way. He just like held a gun to them and like put them in a basement, but that didn't matter because she genuinely cares about people's emotions. I think she can really sense if someone's truly bad or not. Like I think she was really iffy on him, which she had a right to be iffy on him because he was like not a good person. But I think she's still really empathetic towards people, no matter what they've done, because she just really feels for people, no matter what, and it really shows that throughout the whole season, even with Pyrus and stuff like that.
Just generally the feeling of protection and like not being able to show your emotions and prioritizing other people's emotions over yours is something that's talked a lot about within like butch lesbian circles, and so we'll definitely get into that a lot more in the episode next week.
One scene I really love is the scene where KJ goes to the cinema after she gets the invitation from Lauren, and she sits in the back, and she's pretty much going there to spy on her adult self and Lauren, to find out more about her future self. But there's this moment that I really love, which I think was a beautiful moment of cinematography in herself, where we see her behind them looking at them, but then we see her just staring up at the screen, completely transfixed, and in that moment she's just absorbed in her love of film for the first time. And I really love that. And I think it's such a pure kind of early teens moment of discovering something that you love, and it's a coming of age moment as well, and it's done so well. And one thing that I love about it so much is that KJ, who so often makes accommodations for others and stifles herself for others, has this self-discovery journey that's really just focused on learning about herself and valuing herself. And so I think just that moment where she's just staring at the screen, that really resonates with me, because I think it's just this moment where she's taken away from every other concern, and she just finds something that she just adores, and she is just thinking to herself, wow, I love this. I could see myself doing this. So yeah, I just really loved that moment, and I think it's a beautiful point on her journey of self-discovery.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know, I think that's all we had planned, right? Unless anybody has anything they want to add. Are we feeling good about that?
I feel dandy.
There are
Andy is
things
a
I
fine
want to say
word.
but can't word, but
You guys are so smart. I love my friends.
Yeah.
oh, I love you
I've said that
too.
Me
like
too.
10
Shelby,
times.
we love you. We love you,
Oh.
Shelby.
I know. I love these. I love
A
doing
shining
this
star
stuff.
shopping.
So we've got 3 questions we're gonna answer. So let's start off with Michael Seagross's question. KJ appears to be coming to accept her sexuality by the rooftop scene in episode 6. When do you think she begins to consciously be attracted to Mac? Is it the barn scene in episode 8 or earlier?
Based on personal experience and then just like hearing from other queer people, I would say that largely the way that most people experience it is like that attraction may come before the realization of feelings. To me, I think that KJ was infatuated with Mac from the beginning, but that it wasn't until she saw her older self and then talked to Lauren that she realized that this could actually be a possibility for her.
Hole in the Ozone said, in episode 4, KJ mentions how she doesn't want to see her future self because she doesn't want to disappoint herself. If given the chance to travel 31 years into your future, would you want to see how, like, who you were and how you turned out?
No.
Okay, thanks, Tavia. I think.
Hard no for me as well.
What about you, KJ?
I think that I would be conflicted between because I would want to see, but at the same time, I would be afraid of seeing who I become.
I think for me, I definitely wouldn't see who I was. I think I would just trust that I'm happy. I don't want to like push all my judgment onto my future self, and that would make me feel weird. And
Well, I would say yes because I'm nosy. I want to know what 53-year-old me is doing.
Me too. I agree. I am so nosy.
Like, I have to know.
Oh my goodness.
Be alive or dead.
I don't think I could do it because I wouldn't want to have any preconceived notions of how my life would turn out. I'd be nosy, but like if I knew what was going to happen to me, that'd be terrible. That'd be bad.
Yeah.
One more thing that I was thinking, because I've thought about this before, and if I did come into contact with my future self, I think I would trust them to pretend that life was good even if it wasn't. Like when Aaron asked adult Aaron, "Are we happy?" and adult Aaron was like, "That's a loaded question when you're my age kid." I think my older self would handle that completely different and would say, "Yeah, we're very happy."
Okay. Last question is from Joe, lesbian NPC. If the show gets picked up, what's something you would want to see KJ do or experience in a season 2? I think for me,
I have strong opinions.
Yeah, I would definitely want to see her. Other than, I'm gonna ignore Cage Mac because somebody's gonna bring up Cage Mac, I'm sure. I think I would want to see her like live for herself a little bit more. So.
I want to hear her say the word lesbian.
Oh my god.
Really, really bad. I joked on
sad.
Twitter
That's
and
true.
said
That's
that
my
I
answer
wanted
too.
to. I joked on Twitter and said that I wanted to see her commit more violent acts, which is true. But I think deep down, saying the word lesbian is at the first and foremost top of my list.
I think
I want to. Oh, sorry.
The
We
lesbian
started talking at the same time.
The lesbian representation in Paper Girls for like young lesbians is so important, and I think having that explicitly stated would be so amazing.
I was gonna say I'd also really like to see like her coming to terms with like being butch more, and you know, not having to be so like feminine, and I don't know, just like letting go of some of that femininity that's been forced upon her. That would be really nice to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say this.
Okay, what about you, Af?
I wanted to be able to see her tell Mac about like what she saw at the party, like what she was gonna do on the rooftop, basically. Like be able to come out as a lesbian to Mac. I know we know Mac's reaction is going to be a little funky, but I still think, I don't know, of like it's nice to have a character who's able to come out on their own terms. And also I would like to see KJ give in to the anger just a little bit.
Yeah, I think we could have a lot of good angsty Cage Max stuff. Because as much as it like hurts, I think those types of things are really important, and a lot of those interactions really are what build them as such strong characters.
I would like to see KJ become more self-assured. I would like to see her let the weight of the world off her shoulders and laugh more and have fun, but also have more of the boldness and self-assurance that she has in the comics. And I want to see her go further on her self-discovery journey.
Thanks for listening to this episode. We mentioned a couple times during this about doing a Butchness episode next week. That's actually not happening. We're doing a completely unedited episode next week, just like silly shenanigans, just to give ourselves a break, because these have been like a lot of brain power and work to get together. So we want to give ourselves a break and give the people what they want. People seem to like silly stuff a little bit better. So we'll see you next week.